just a workshop with no intended
Right.
action. because-
See how his eyes just turned on, Donna?
Oh, I see it.
So there you go.
All right, well, we'll wait a couple more minutes just to see if anybody shows up. And then if we don't, then I will just, we'll call the meeting to order and we'll go into workshop.
Yeah, how come there wasn't anything put on the agenda for the, like if anything came from the workshop?
Because I didn't think we were at a point where we were ready to actually take action. I
It was
think,
already up. But actually,
no, I mean, I didn't know what people were gonna ask and,
yeah.
I figured I don't have enough energy for, No, I mean, I figured that what would happen is that people would have questions and then we'd get more answers and bring it up at another time where it would just be its own agenda item. As opposed to, sometimes it can be a knee-jerk reaction because people come in and, people have what sounds like good ideas and you think about the unintended consequences afterwards, one way or the other. So I figured if we decide we want to do something, we can put it on the next agenda. That was my rationale.
How did you come in possession of that? So,
I got from Justin.
Justin worked it down.
All right, are we live right now? Okay, so everyone who's been listening to us, we've just been having casual chats. We're not part of, this isn't part of the real meeting. But now it is, now we're serious. And this is July 21st, 2020. It's 6:05 or 2021. I can't even read my own print. And it is it's about
6 o'clock, that was wrong.
Oh, that clock's wrong. Okay, so it's 6 o'clock. And we're going to have a workshop on street signs for the next half hour, and then our business meeting will commence. And just to start off the workshop, I would like to make a public apology because I actually said on Facebook that no new stop signs had been put up during this whole discussion of signs. And I found out afterward that that was not the case. Even Justin didn't know that a well-meaning person had put up stop signs, new stop signs where no stop sign had been authorized in the past. And there's a whole process that we have to go through in order to actually establish a stop sign. And there are places on this island where we probably should add them, and there are people who are advocating for them. But just having us just put them up without following the right process is not the right thing to do. So I didn't mean to mislead anybody. I didn't have the correct information. And secondly, I would just say that I think the Facebook conversation that encouraged people to take down signs did not help the whole discussion. Rather than having a rational discussion about the merits of having signs, what ended up happening is that people in the community felt enabled to go around and actually commit vandalism. And that's something that we do not, at least I do not condone in this community. And I think that that is something that's a separate issue that we need to deal with. But it just complicated the whole question of street signs, where people took the law into their own hands and destroyed public property. So saying that, that's all I have to say about it. And I'd like to ask each member of the board if they have something they want to say before we open it up to the public to talk about whether or not we should have street signs.
I think we should have street signs. I don't know what else needs to be said. Being out there as a worker, I've been asked several times where this road was and where this road is and where this road is. You can't tell it in out of state or, you turn by what's his name's house on the left and, so to me, it's simple to do that. And I've seen people still stand on the corner of roads and look at their phone going, and they're like, trying to figure out where they are on the map, and if you're not from here, you get disoriented.
So now I'll take my turn and then we'll go to Mark. One of the things that I thought was kind of interesting, after Chris Loder said that I was probably the only person who could fill out the whole map, Rachel and I did a little challenge, and I got the roads down at Division Point mixed up, just to let you know. Rachel looked at, I said, go from the Historical Society to the John Small Road, and she got 2.5 right. Like, she got the road we live on and the road behind us that she actually named, and the Clarks, when she was a little kid, Secret Road, and the Clarks chose that as the name of the real road. And the half she got was, she thought Central Landing Road was the one across from the Roy Hill Road, but it's actually, that's Wharf Road, and the next one is the Central Landing Road. So I gave her a half point for that. Also during this time, I had a call from Susan Campbell, who was working for the delivery, the Amazon people, because she had no idea where Ricker Head Road was, and they were trying to deliver a gas road. So we have as Bo said, we have a problem. The people who live here don't really know where the streets are. Part of that is because when 911 came in, we had to come up with arbitrary names, and most people didn't pay attention to that. I'm going to turn it over now to Mark, and at the end, I'm going to go back to Justin and ask, Justin to explain some of the feedback that he had and why, what his rationale was too. Mark.
So, although I understand why some people that are from away or come here, or even a sheriff, I guess, was one of the reasons given for needing some sort of markings for the streets. I haven't heard the outcry from people that I've talked to in much of support for street signs. Mostly I've heard, why would you guys put them up? Why do we need them? They seem silly, and they're only marking the main roads anyway. That's what I've heard from most people. In other words, they're not marking O'Neill Road and Westview Road and the side roads. So I'm not sure I quite understood the total point that Chris Loder was trying to make. I understand certainly some of it, as far as the emergency response part of it goes. That should be something that should definitely be considered if it's a problem or a need. But I find it interesting that only one individual so far from the rescue or fire has said anything about it. So I guess I haven't heard the outcry and the support. And like I said before, without making Justin feel badly or any more badly than he might have felt from some feedback that he got, which wasn't positive, he probably should have had a discussion about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Jen?
I don't have really one way or the other an opinion about whether or not we should have street signs. I think that if they go up, that's fine, they're helpful. I don't think it's just a street sign. It doesn't, to me, change shebang. This is where we are, it's just a sign. And I think the people that get upset about it changing, becoming suburbia is just a little blown out of proportion. At the same time, if they're going to be put up and be taken down, that doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense either. So I'm just Switzerland in this case. I don't feel like it can hurt things or it can help things.
Thanks. Jay?
I think your last comment, it can't help, it can't hurt. I've had several conversations. What I found most interesting was the people who are delivering on this island would love to see the signs up. And just, and we're talking about people that have lived there here their entire lives. I'm not talking about summer folks that can't figure out how to get to the next cocktail party. We're talking about people who lived here their entire lives, would like to see the signs in place. And that to me, you know, says something. I mean, you know, it's been a lovely brouhaha on social media, but, you know, Kendra, thank you for coming. You're a cause of one, if you will. I mean, where are all the people who are screaming and hollering, we're murdered? They can't be bothered to show up. And so, you know, whichever way we decide to do this, you know, I think is fine, but I would point out just that there are any number of people who are here, make a living here, who've lived here all their lives, wouldn't mind seeing signs to just remind them of where the hell they were.
I have to agree with you, Jay, because the majority of the people who spoke to me, who, and I did not search out for people, I can tell you that, the majority of the people who wanted the signs were people who had lived here and grown up here. And which in the beginning, I'm thinking, this is kind of crazy. And then I realized they didn't see this as a threat to themselves, which I thought was interesting. And it seemed as if most of the people who were coming to me who felt that we shouldn't have the signs, I think they were trying to hold on to something that I don't know whether still exists. But anyway, I thought it was interesting. I'd like Justin to talk about, I think that to answer Mark's question, when the conversations I've had with Justin, is this was going to be the first step because there was some money left over from last year, and the intent was that all of those roads would eventually get signed, but I don't want to speak for Justin. Well,
Yeah.
Justin, and then if Christine wants to say something, she can, and then Kendra. Kendra's representing the whole public, so she can, it's what you know.
So I started with the big roads because at least it would give someone orientation. If they made it to a certain point, they could go, oh, they look at a map, this is Littlefield Road, and I'm going for the second, whatever, down on the right, I know it's kind of here. Otherwise, you could easily get halfway down and you don't know whether you're near Roy Hill, Littlefield, or whatever, and you have no idea what the next little street is on the other side or whatever. That was the rationale starting. I apologize for the stop signs going up. The miscommunication was I asked that the road signs be placed on top of any stop sign that was there to avoid putting up more poles. And that was misinterpreted to mean if you put up a pole, put a stop sign there too. The rules of putting up traffic control devices, stop, yield, no parking, only the municipal officers have the authority to do that. I do not have, so that was a mistake. So those have all been taken down except the ones that were already approved by the board. I gave you a few pieces of paper in front of you, just to give you a general idea that those are excerpts from the Uniform Manual Traffic Control devices. Those are very small excerpts of a multi-thousand-page document that delineates how tall a stop sign pole should be to where certain street lights, when it should be a yield versus a stop sign. In a lot of larger municipalities, they just adopt this manual and then staff goes out and puts them up according to the manual. So it makes it a not political thing about whether one direction should be a stop versus a yield, or whether someone should be able to park in front of a fire hydrant, and whether there should be a sign on the fire hydrant, all those things. It kind of takes it out of, and you just point to the manual. So that's a very big one. It controls the size, the color, all of that. There's nothing to say in that manual that a municipality has to follow it. It was adopted by the federal government in the 1950s. It was adopted by the state of Maine in 1974, and it's what basically the state uses and the federal government uses to decide which signs go where and what they should look like. That's why they all look the same across the country. We don't have triangle stop signs in New Hampshire, things like that. The color, and that is one version of a standard road sign.
This one right here.
That right there is what
For
the other version.
owl to see.
Yeah, the other version is the same color, but they call it a beveled edge, so the top and the bottom beveled, and if you drive next time you go to Cousins, you'll see the signs that Yarmouth has adopted have beveled edges. There's no real difference, they're just preference, whoever put them up like that, the way that one looks better.
Is this, would this be like the D3 one?
If you're the one that, I think so, at the top left.
Yeah, without the bevel.
Yeah, without the bevel, yep.
So I hope everybody can see this.
There's nothing to say that those can't be different colors. You'll notice in some, even over on Cousins, on the private ways, they make them white with green letters, and they put PDT in the corner so that somebody will know that this is somebody's driveway, not a public way. In some municipalities, you'll see in historic districts, they'll make them red with white letters, just so they can delineate the historic district of their community to the outside. There's nothing that says they can't be different colors. But that is the standard, the font is the standard that's in the manual, the size, all of that is
I
also.
can pass this down.
If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. That's where that comes from.
Does
I didn't design it.
anyone have a question of Justin about stuff, about any of the signs? Mark?
Do they have to be factory made? Can they be privately made to be look a little more countryish?
Sure, you can, the municipality can choose to do anything it wants. It's just that if it becomes a custom application, it's going to be much more expensive. They're going to be hard to replace when they do get either hit by a snowplow or get stolen or whatever. That material and those colors, the standard blue, red, white, and all that, they're available at any sign manufacturer, and you turn those things around in 2-3 days.
How much?
For I believe that sign right there was, I think those were like $25.
Christine, you don't have to comment if you don't want to, but you're welcome to.
I just think it's vandalism, and I think that, I wish that they had caught the people that did it, and I think that as a board, you should stand behind the town administrator and put them back up, and maybe put cameras out there if you have to, but I think they should go back.
Thank you. All right, now, members of the public. And we would like you to be able to be seen by the owl. Can the owl see
I
her?
think you can see it.
Can you see yourself under on that? Speak and see.
You
if
gotta move, Ken.
You move closer to it.
And speak really loud. Well, you're probably okay because you're closer to it.
You know, I didn't have a prepared speech, but, I think I can remember when streetlights went up and how everybody had such a thing about that, and they got shot out with BB guns for a long time. Remember when the first stopped? And what a horrible thing that was. But we worked hard for this little town of Shebid Island. And when I saw the streetlight on the corner, I took some pride in that. I was happy to see it. I thought, you know, we're really becoming a nice little town. And I could not believe what I was seeing and reading on Facebook. I couldn't believe that they were being stolen so quickly. I was very disappointed with that. I believe, does that sign at night light up when a car high beams on? Yeah, thank you. I really would like us to see the signs go back up. I would like them for 2 reasons. One, the rescue, and then 2, for the summer people that come here. I give directions down Firehouse Road all the time because people don't know where they're going. I just think it makes it nicer for them. But I'd also, and I definitely think the side roads need to be done. That's phase 2. That's probably more important than South and North Road, actually. But I'd also like to see this board take it a step further, and I think for rescue reasons, we need numbers on our houses. We've just recently, last week, I know of a rescue that nobody knew the street they were calling. Luckily, and I'm gonna throw him out there, Doug Ross knew where it was and went directly to the house and then was able to tell people where to go. But nobody on the rescue knew where it was. And as you know, Chris Lotus said the last time is of an essence. So I think we need to not only have our streets identified, I think we need to have our houses numbered as well. And I had the rescue come to my house one day in the winter because a guy got mixed up and said the wrong number. And so they came to 227, which was really another number. So in that case, it wouldn't have made any difference, but it just, I think it would help the rescue. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening to me. And I hope that the firehouse street road gets signed, gets put back up on my little corner soon.
Does anyone have a question to ask of Kendra?
No, I mean, I like, and I agree with, like I said, when Chris Loder spoke last week, the numbers on the houses and the properties is pretty important. I think we need to get that information. Ralph's tried to get that information out in the past to people to make sure that it says, you know, 53 South Road or whatever it is. And that way, the individual that falls in the rescue hopefully will give that number to some kind of dispatch and reads it over back to the rescue. I think that's just as important. I think Kendra's right. I think just like anything that's new in any community, town, state, or country, people immediately have a reaction of infringement of their life as the way it has been. The way it goes.
Oh, James.
I remember right, one of the code enforcement officer's jobs, or one of his tasks relates to 911 and numbers. I forget what the name of the designation is. Okay, I'm sure you remember, Justin.
Yeah.
But that's part of his signed job.
Yes, he's the 911 addressing officer. We have a book in the office that's very detailed about, you know, which building is what number. So it's in a book, but if it's not on the house, it's not as helpful for, you know, fire or rescue, they don't know.
Does fire rescue have that book, I wonder?
They do have copies of it.
Oh,
Yeah. But it's basically a map it's a map of the town. It doesn't have satellite photos or anything. It just shows that at this point in the road, it's 24 and then, you know, whatever.
I mean, this is not to say we shouldn't put numbers in the houses, it's just,
Right. Yep. There is a system to do it.
yeah.
Yes.
And, you know, in the past, they used to actually say the name of the residence too, but they don't do that anymore, probably because. of
I don't think
privacy.
you're supposed to, and
That's it.
sometimes they have to, and it's not, they don't like doing that,
Right.
but they kind of have to. And you made a point too with the FedEx people, they need that now. It's just with the explosion of. Anyway, thank you for listening to me, guys.
Enjoy your pizza.
Yes.
Justin, I know that we authorized a paramedic at least one day a week to come here. And where is that program and how will that person know where they're supposed to go?
That is a good question. It was another one of the sort of small reasons in my head to start putting these up, but there hasn't been anybody hired yet. I know that Ralph, I think, has given 2 people tours so far of the island to see if they want to do it, and I'm not sure other than that.
And has Ralph weighed in on this?
No.
Not yet. Okay.
I saw somebody sitting with the doors all open today, looking like they might have been on call.
Oh, really?
Did you see?
Yeah,
that?
There was someone there today. There were 2 guys have been there so far, and one is gonna take it.
One is his daughter's husband or something, or
Oh, I don't know.
Nobody's been in to fill out any.
Okay, so there's been no forms filled out. One of the things that was brought to my attention, and I don't know if this would be the case, but I said I would find out. say you were riding a bicycle on a road on Shebay, like say it was my road and you saw the right of way to the shore sign, so you wanted to get out and have a picnic. But you had no idea what road you're on. You fall off your bike and you call 911. Can 911 be able to identify through GPS where you are? Or if you don't know you're on Fenderson Road, all you say is, well, I fell off a bicycle on a road, a dirt road near the store, and there's about 3 or 4 roads that it could be. I mean, I'm just wondering what the, you know, I said, well, you'd be calling from yourself, if you call from your cell phone. I didn't know if the, you know, if the dispatcher was able to identify, because that's another thing, if the person doesn't know where they are, how do you get help? The other question about homemade signs, I just know because my husband makes signs, and wooden signs have a definite shelf life. Plus they cost, as Justin said, I mean, they cost a lot more money if you make homemade signs. But, you know, it's still a sign, it's still identifying something. But there is a bigger cost. So anyway, this is nearly the end of our time talking about this. Do we want to have an agenda item and talk about taking action? Or or do you want to wait until the end of the meeting where we get to the point where what's going to be on the next agenda? There's time to think about it. What do you guys think? What do you think, Jen? So,
I think we just wait until the end of the meeting.
yeah, okay. I think that sounds reasonable. So what's the real time? Because I can't use my watch
6:25.
anymore because it keeps calling 911.
I said 6:25.
Okay, so we got 5 minutes.
So, if I can, my thoughts are, we should come up with, if we do adopt, put the street signs up, come up with policies, the right thing, or whatever, you know, because we gotta do something about the vandalism. We catch somebody there, I don't know if you have something already in place for that stuff, but.
Well, anytime you take public property and you destroy it, I mean, I don't get, but the bottom line is the community's got to say, this is not acceptable to destroy public property.
Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah.
I mean, there's already something, isn't there, on the books, Justin, that would,
Well, I mean, it's theft. Right?
Yeah.
And vandalism, so I mean, you know, it's just a matter of deciding to refer it to the police, what it is.
It doesn't destruction of public property, but if you decide to put street signs on most or every street on the island, it might be good to put out some sort of a statement about why that decision was made, what the purpose or goal is for putting the signs out, and then maybe something that tells people the cost per sign, something like that, so that people know that if they steal one, it's $25 or $35 or $40, and you know, we may keep replacing them at that cost. Plus, you know, might just be good to put something in your town administrator statement at some point if this is pursued.
well, if you think back to Chandler's Cove, we had a really hard time, after Sanford deeded that property to, the town of Cumberland. And Sanford was very upset at how the public was using it, especially at night. And, it took Bill Shane to actually become the town manager and say enough is enough. Someone actually got run over down there. And he went down there, he sent his crew down there, he did landscaping, moved things around. And every time that someone would build a fire in that field again, they'd go down and clean it up. And he told the fire department not to give out permits for them to be able to have fires down there. But it was a continued effort, and finally it got further and further apart. And I think it's been 3 or 4 years at the most that there's been anything done. And it does, it takes the community, it takes the town to say enough is enough when you get to enforcing rules, because if everybody says, well, girls will be girls, boys will be boys, and that's just what we've always done, then what you're doing is you're encouraging, whether it's your kids or the other adults in the community, to go out and vandalize. So anyway, what's that time now?
Just about 6:30.
Only 6:30.
Okay. So, repeat this once again. All right, so public comments for items not on the agenda. So we get the owl here, I don't know if the
We
owl,
need to call the public meeting to order first.
I did it, I already did that.
Sorry.
That's okay, I did it before anyway, the public comments, there's nobody in the public here tonight. We wish they were, we really appreciate it when the public does come and gives us public input.
I just have a question about that. We currently live streaming on Zoom.
Yeah.
What about people that are on Zoom watching at home? That want to make some kind of public comment?
They can't,
Okay.
no, they're not allowed to, not unless one of you is also participating remotely. If you're all here.
Can you speak up loudly and explain that to the people
Yep.
at home?
So with the executive orders ending, there are limitations, and I will be bringing a proposed policy to you so that you do have some options, once I get that together, about remote participation. But basically, it says that the only time that the public can participate remotely is if a member of the board who is voting also is remote. And those persons under the statute are expected to be in person unless something is preventing them, either an emergency or something where they have a good reason. When one of you participates remotely, we have to allow the public to do the same. But if you're all meeting in person, they have to come here in person to participate.
Thank you for that clarification. Anybody have any questions about that? Okay, thanks. All right, so moving right on to the town administrator's reports.
I don't have anything new to present from last week. So I put it on there in case I did. Or it's just Chris's idea, actually.
We know where the brains are.
You allow one question at a time?
Sure.
I just wanted to ask Justin if you thought that the transfer station was doing better temporarily.
I think so far we are. I can't remember if I said this last week, but I made it clear to both the employees up there that if they're having something removed, if the other can is still only half full, at least through the summer, have it hauled off. It's not efficient because we're paying for barging for half filled cans. But I think to get us through the summer, I think it's just the cost of doing business. We're gonna have to just eat some of that barging cost to make sure that the cans get out of there. I think that there's been some improvements with, there isn't so much stuff laying around up there. I think it's cleaner. I think it's very helpful to have that extra person. I think with just one person up there, it's just overwhelming to try to keep track of. Because, there's no flow up there. People just kind of come in and park all over the place.
And just one more question quickly, are we still on board with a consultant from GP Cog coming?
Yes, he's gonna come out sometime next week to look at the transfer station. And he also wanted to check off his list. This is the only town in GP Cog's area that he hasn't visited yet, so he's excited to check that out.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to regular business.
Can I ask,
Sure, certainly.
Justin, we talked last week about seeing if we could set up that meeting with Pete Skowronski.
Yes,
Headway on that.
I am awaiting to sign the contract with Barney Baker so that he can participate in that meeting with us. Once I get that executed, I'll try to schedule both of them to get them here for you.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else have a question of the town administrator? Okay, seeing on regular business 21201, to consider the reappointment of committee members to their respective committees. Carol White, Planning Board; Cheryl Stevens, Board of Adjustment and Appeals; Sandra McLean, Board of Adjustment and Appeals; Denise Hamilton, Cemetery Committee; Ernie Burgess, Shellfish Committee; Justin Dowdy, Coastal Waters Commission; and to consider the following appointments to their respective committees. These are people who are not being reappointed because they're new appointees. John Holt III to the Cemetery Committee, John Wilson to the Planning Board, Heidi Martin to the Cemetery Committee, David Hill to the Broadband Committee. And we have a suggested motion. It's been moved by Jen, seconded by Bo, to reappoint and appoint the persons listed on agenda item 21-201 to their respective committees. Any questions?
I'd like to offer an amendment.
Okay,
I would like us to take the appointments, the following, the second group of four, and do them individually.
and do them individually.
Yes.
All right, so, is there a second to that idea? Okay, seeing there's no second, that, amendment dies.
Then I have to ask a second question if I might,
Sure,
and I'm sorry to beat a dead horse here. But David Hill works for Axiom, appointing to the broadband committee seems to be what we used to refer to as a conflict of interest. And while that hasn't been enforced by this board previously, it may be time to finally stand up and do the thing the right way.
is he actually employed by now? I know Beverly is, but I don't believe he is.
Well, he had been, I don't.
Well, he has been in the past, yeah, but I'm not sure he is.
Is it a question anybody has?
I haven't seen the application, so,
It's not on the application.
In the packet.
I mean,
It's not on there.
that's what I mean, there's nothing on there that asks that question. Well, he was the town's liaison, the Board of Selectmen's liaison to that committee before he, left the board, so. What do people want to do? I mean, right now, we have no second to that, amendment.
If I may, I see in here Drew's point. I think there's enough people on this newly formed committee that I wouldn't worry about that being a major influence on any recommendation coming forward from that group.
So you think that because there are so many people on there, that he would not have that big influence?
Well, that's my perception. It could be incorrect, but that's kind of how I'm thinking about it.
Well, I think up to this point, he's been working with that committee because of the role he had, so. All right, we'll see if there's no one who wants to second it. I'm gonna call for a vote. All right, all in favor of the motion? All opposed to the motion?
And I'm terribly sorry to have to.
No,
oppose
I
it,
understand. I understand what you're
Because
saying.
I think you've got a lot of very fine candidates, a lot of people who've done a great job. And, you know, we have one person who taints the outcome of decisions. That's all. Leave it there.
All right, so moving on to 21-202, to consider and approve the Stone Wharf Road expansion proposal from CPN Mahar. We have the suggested motion. Is there someone who'd like to make that motion before we start discussion?
I'd like to move to authorize the town administrator to execute the Stone Wharf widening proposal with Stevie and Mahar Engineering dated July 6th, 2021.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Jen. All right, it's been moved and seconded. So Justin, would you like to give us some background, and then the board may have some questions?
Sure. So the previous sitting board asked that this was a priority to get, this project moving along. So I reached out to CV and Mahar, and this proposal includes preliminary design, gathering the information, putting together a conceptual plan. Then if that is approved, the scope of this also includes construction documents and assisting us with actually putting the project up. So it should follow us all the way to basically getting the project done.
Thank you. Do people on board, members of the board have any questions? Mark?
So I chatted very quickly with Justin late this afternoon, and I told him I was a little shocked at the price of it, quite frankly, but then again, I'm not an engineer and I don't know what it takes to design or redesign or reconfigure a existing public way with proper road construction and safety design and so on and so forth. But the proposal does take us right through to construction documents and into the, bid process, so I guess that's a positive. I did say to Justin that if we move forward with trying to figure out how to make the Stone Wharf Road better, when it goes down and meets the neck of the Stone Wharf, if you will, that's where it's really troublesome right now, as we all know, because it's squeezed right off there, and that's where people try to park and get through, and there's a telephone pole going on. So I'm hoping that if we move forward with trying to make the Stone Wharf Road better and then look at the Stone Wharf separately, which it appears we're going to probably do, I'm hoping we can have the engineers look at that neck of the Stone Wharf, see if it can be broadened or widened even with this proposed design and possible project. Even if we don't raise or fix it, or whatever that sign says, those people, bumper stickers, fix the Stone Wharf, I love that. I don't know what that means, but it's a good bumper sticker anyway. So my only point is I'm hoping that if we move forward with this design and engineering proposal, and then we try to go forward with a project to make the Stone Wharf Road more passable with two-lane traffic and parking on both or either side of the Stone Wharf Road, I hope it includes some consideration and modification of how that bottom of that Stone Wharf Road is gonna be widened now or later with, once you
You
get down
mean
there.
where it enters the wharf?
Once you get down there, you're into DEP, as you well know.
Justin and then Bo.
I did have a brief conversation with Jason from Wright Pierce about whether it was appropriate to move ahead with the widening of the Stone Wharf Road, considering the future project of Stone Wharf. And he said that he would be willing to take a quick look at anything that's proposed, but he figured that whatever we did at the Stone Wharf, they could engineer around any transition that might happen there to make sure that it was smooth even after the fact. So I just wanted to make sure you're all aware of that.
Thank you. Bo?
So my thoughts about the bottom there, I mean, they'd be losing some parking spots, but it could be done without even, because they're parking like this, and then there's parking on the side like this, eliminate those parking areas, you're gaining 10, 12 feet right there.
Right.
So, I mean, you're losing parking area, but I'm hoping that this will actually gain some.
Right, so if we gain some spaces here, I think you're right. If we eliminate parking on both sides of the road, right at where that telephone pole is, then that is definitely, the line of sight's gonna be better.
Yeah.
Jay?
I think I sort of agree with both Mark and Bo. My first comment when I read this in my own mind was, it's like a road to nowhere. Because unless you've got someplace to turn around, you're dumping more traffic into a small confined area. However we do it, if you just marked out a big turning circle down in that area, beyond where the telephone pole is, and back off the parking away from whatever you had to do to get that room. But that way, if you got a double lane road going down there, people could drive, there'd be a turning circle, and they can come back out. Otherwise, we're in the same mess that we're in now. And as part of this, I would also like to suggest that we change our parking rules down there. Today, when I was down there, for instance, Kim Bain had 3 trucks that had been there for about 48 hours, or 36 taking up spots that could have been used by people. You know, and he's not there waiting for the barge or anything, he's just parking them there and leaving them. We need to redo the parking rules down there, I think, redo the traffic flow. And none of this requires anything but a couple of cans of paint and some, you know, thought. And then in addition to that, it would allow free traffic flow, though at some point in the last 2 years, you've talked about having diagonal parking there on one side. You know, if we allow people to park, we widen the road, all the conversations about the stone wall were about safety and improving safety. And so one of the things we really need to think about is if we do a wider road, to maybe have a walking lane. You know, like when you drive across, you know, some of the bridges around here, they got a 3-foot wide path, it's blocked, you know, it's separate. But in our brief to C.D. Mahar, that should be the safety and building something in there so that people can actually walk without walking in the middle of the road and wondering if they're gonna get nailed from behind. Much less by a golf ball. So I think that those are some of the things that, I mean, I love the idea of widening the road, I think it's terrific, but I think that we have to do it with a little greater plan in mind and a little. The turning circle at the bottom doesn't have to be permanent. It can, as I say, you do it with a couple of cans of marker paint, you know, and mark it out, and that's where people are supposed to go. And if we change the rules so that the barge traffic is not arriving at the same time ferries are, we won't have half the congestion. I mean, today, like it often happens, the ferry's arriving, the barge is arriving, and people are trying to figure out where to go, where to put a car, where to wait for people. And, you know, nobody can straighten that out. Unless, you know, we create one, ferries, you know, the barge cannot arrive within 15 minutes of the ferry, departure or arrival, for instance. It's not going to impact CTC that greatly. And if it, you know, and whatever, if they miss one barge trip because of it, that's unfortunate. But in the meantime, we will have created a much safer environment down there for people to be able to walk, people to be able to pick up people. And without doing that, and without sort of putting together all aspects of this, widening the road, while a terrific idea, isn't really accomplishing what we need to accomplish down there, which is a safer environment, an environment with better traffic flow. And without worrying, I mean, without getting to the point of building out the stone wharf and how exactly that's going to work out, we can basically make a path for cars to make that loop. And won't miss much. I mean, we may miss a few parking spots, but we're not going to miss that much. And I think that that's what we really need to look at when we give, see if, you know, somebody can go ahead with C.D. Mahar, the charge should be that whole package, not just how do you widen the road to 32 feet on the way down.
I asked Justin some of those questions, and he can speak for himself, but what he told me was he had spoken to them, because I was concerned about the gully, the culverts, not the ditches, and how deep they are, and how that was going to be, would have to be reconfigured in order to even widen the road. So there's a lot of things that I would think is going to happen in that preliminary design, and maybe we need a workshop once they get the preliminary design with them, and some of the ideas that that Jay has just spoken to. I think that I would assume that they would do something about a walking area in that space. And when we've talked for at least 20 or 30 years about that turning site, probably maybe 40 years about the turning site circle. And I think it's a great idea if we have somebody down there regularly, because what happens is people stop in the middle of that turning circle. Because now some of us, that's kind of what naturally we do, and drop things off and don't go down to the end of the wharf. but people stop right in the middle and start, and they've got kids running around and, and so then that just backs everybody else up, and people start trying to drive around them. And,
Well,
so somehow, I mean, I'm supporting you, Jay, I'm just saying that there are variables that, you know, we need to have there's more to it, I think, than just making a circle. We've got to figure out how to get people to follow that pattern.
I think two things. One is, one of the things I said was, this has to be part of the charge that you give to CVMR. If you're hiring them to design the road, that should be part of the package. Let them figure it out. They're the engineers. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, I thought that part would be on the right Pierce part.
Well, building a wider road and dumping more traffic in there without any even attempt at a solution seems to me not to make any sense. As much as I'd like to see the wide road going down there.
Could I just interject?
Sure.
I think they'll bring some good. If you read the task number one, we haven't given them any idea of what exactly we want, other than we want to widen the road to its full potential. If you look at them at letter C, it says coordinate with the town to develop layout options that conform to the required municipal design standards. So once we engage them, we're going to lay out these things, like, do we want, is the goal, do you want to have one goal that's maximum parking? You want to have another one that's maybe a little more parking, but we want pedestrian friendly ways, right? Everything's a trade-off. If you're gonna add a sidewalk, you're gonna lose the potential for parking spaces. But those are all things that you all have to decide. But we would give them, I think, a few of those things we want them to consider, and they will bring back multiple conceptual plans. You know, A, B, and C, which one would you want?
Well, I bring this up because that wasn't in this, which,
No, it is. It's on page 2, letter C.
One, two,
And also, E talks about, D's missing actually here, but it talks about preparing a conceptual plan to be reviewed by the town. So I would think at that point, that would be where we would have the input if they don't do it well.
I understand what Jay's saying. It doesn't specifically say where it ends and stuff like that. I'd be interested, just table this until we get clarification from Tier R on if at least informative of our concerns about increasing the size of the road and not having a turnaround at the bottom, if that's something that he's planning already to add to this, or interested to add to this, without increasing the cost, hopefully.
What they responded to, so you know, what they responded to a survey that I sent them of the road showing that it was 32 feet and told them that the project would end at the telephone pole. So if you want it to go further than that, then I would need to, I don't know if it would impact the cost, but I would need to revise what I asked them for. That's
Well,
not what
and
I
I
asked.
think, I have to say that I think the goal that we had here was not to increase traffic, it was to make traffic safer. So by having 2 lanes would make it safer, not, I don't see it bringing more cars down there. What I see is that, what we had talked about by widening it would be that it would be safer, there would be more room for pedestrians, and that we might get some increased parking along the way, but I can't see that it would bring more cars down there. Maybe I'm just being naive, but Mark?
well, I think Jay's point is a good one. Just so you guys all know, the way I'm looking at this is, I thought we might start by looking to see if we could widen the Stone Wharf Road, and do anything different with the parking to try to make things a little better with that. Phase 2, I think we need to take a hard look at the structure itself, being the Stone Wharf. We haven't even got the structural integrity report back, but I expect it will come back soon. And so I think his point is well taken. When you make a road bigger, wider, and smoother, it doesn't slow people down. It doesn't make them drive any safer. It doesn't make them go down to the boat any earlier. It doesn't make them drive into the entrance of the Stone Wharf any slower. So I think his point's well taken. it's not going to solve the mayhem down there at certain times of the day and year. That's unfortunate. I think we should consider going ahead with this proposal and see if we can get the point across to CV and Mahar and see what they say about our concerns about when you get on to the zone walk, whether they can help us with that or whether the other engineering firm is going to be a better option. I think it's a good point.
I think it's a good point. I'm glad it's been raised, but I think it's a different project.
Yeah.
I guess that's my feeling is that whether we have CV Mahar or we have Wright Pierce, the question is, where are we going in the long run here?
Yeah.
And Jay's idea of, we could just go down there and draw some, make a circle, and we could try that ourselves. We could do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And, that doesn't take engineering. But I
put a street sign showing.
yeah. Well, you're gonna have to say yes. Entrance and exit.
And very quickly, I wholeheartedly agree with Jay's point about the parking down there. A couple of years ago, I brought up the fact that, Kim, and I wasn't picking on Kim Bain, but he was leaving vehicles down there, and I know he's providing a service and a very good one at times to get that junk off the island, so we don't want to discourage that from anyone. But I did bring it up to Marjorie that the trucks were sitting there for multiple days before they were going onto the barge, but there'd be a different system to be more considerate to the general public that needs to park there, and it hasn't changed. So I think that has to be looked at and tightened up a little bit. Not just that situation either. People parking multiple days, no matter who they are.
And just, if I may follow up on that a little bit. Again, if we rewrite the rules for the traffic down there and work with CTC so that they don't have barges arriving at the same time ferry runs. You've got people coming off the barge, trying to accelerate up the ramp so they don't get stuck. Because the ramp's falling apart, it's another topic completely. But, and into this mass of people driving down to try and pick people up. And, this is another it would help clear up some of the mayhem that exists down there on any day that they're barging.
So,
And it's a simple solution.
yeah, okay, so we've got several issues here. One is redoing some of the rules down there, which makes sense. One is a conversation with CTC. Another is, which areas do the individual engineers do we want them to work on? But right now we have in front of us a proposal from CV and Mahar to do what we've been trying to do for the last 5 years, which is widen that road. And I think that we should just move forward and vote. Jen?
I agree, but I think the public is waiting for this town to start making some moves down there, and start by trying to, make some improvements. And we dealt with CV Mahar or the boatyard for different reasons. They're a very reputable firm. They have island ties, and I think it's a good place to start. And they get a proposal to us, and then we start telling them all our ideas that, that we've been discussing tonight. But it's on the table, and I think we just need to do it.
Right, I'm gonna call for a vote, and we'll see where it goes and then decide. All in favor of CV and Mahar's proposal as it is now written, with the understanding that they will come back with a conceptual plan for the town, and there will be an opportunity for feedback. Vote. You're voting, okay. All in favor, unanimous. We beat that one. But there is, as Jay said, there are other issues down there we need to keep on, get to the front burner. Okay, the next item on the agenda has to do with, to consider and approve the Firehouse Road drainage bid. Would someone like to move this? To accept the bid from Shebig Sand and Gravel and to authorize the town administrator to execute the contract with the same.
So,
Is there a second? Sure.
The drainage this isn't the culverts.
No, this is the area, we've been working for quite a few years with John Riley and Roy Jackson. That's what that is.
Yeah.
It's-
Were there other bids? Or was it?
I will turn that over to Justin, but that was the only bid.
No, there wasn't.
And I guess we don't have much.
You want to second it?
I would love to second that.
All right, and, are there any abstentions?
Yes.
You'd
We
like to
know that,
recuse yourself. That's just the charter, so Chris, put it on.
yeah, he's recusing himself. Bo is not the owner, but he is an employee of the company. Thank you, Bo, for all you do. All right, are there any questions to ask, Justin about this proposal? This has been under discussion for a long time.
questions, I'd like to make a comment.
Sure.
So this is a drainage easement project that we've been working on now for what, a couple of years?
At least.
And that doesn't matter, we work on things for 10 years around here, but my point, I got a couple of points. I think there's a tremendous amount of water that comes down Martin's Hill and comes out of the area between Sue Benner, near Sue Benner and Whale Indies Auxiliary Well, and it's taking care of, this will take care of a lot of that. And hopefully, if we can ever get Firehouse Road sealed up with our culvert and power line issues that we had to redo, keep that road from washing out and save some private property, which I think maybe the town of Shebig or the town of Cumberland helped cause more problems with. But saying that, this will set precedent moving forward in this town. And what I mean by that is, I'm not trying to say anything bad about the project or the need for the project, but this will set precedent and break new ground with this town. I believe this is the first drainage easement that we are going to successfully complete and
To actually fund, we approved a couple of them, but this one we're actually
but
funding.
it's legally done now. It'll be filed, it'll be completed physically, and then there'll be some maintenance responsibilities moving forward. So my only point to that is, well, not going on and on, is it sets precedent moving forward where people can say, well, they did this on Firehouse Road, they did this on Caps Road, which we may also do. They also should do it on this road. That's all I'm saying. It's not a negative, it's not meant to be a negative statement, but it does mean that we may be serious about actually implementing these and be asked to implement these in the future.
And we should be treating
Thank you.
all residents
Yeah.
the same.
That's
And
all I meant.
thank you for bringing that up. I had a question about the ancillary fees. Now, are we paying so does the town pay directly for barging, or are we paying Shebig Sand and Gravel and they're paying the barging?
Well, I asked them to put down fees that were not directly related to their work. So my understanding from this is they're saying that part of their bid includes $5,100 that's going to be going.
Oh, so that's not an additional 51?
No.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you. All right, anyone else have any questions before we vote? Seeing none. All right, all in favor? All recused? Thank you. It passes 4 with 1 confusion, or whatever you call it.
Not yet.
So the next item is 21/2004, to consider and approve a new plow truck for public works. The suggested motion to authorize the town administrator to enter into a contract to purchase a new plow truck and related equipment, and to authorize the treasurer to execute the related borrowing for the same. Is there a motion?
So
Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Now is the time for discussion, and I would like to just ask a quick question. So, from what I understood from the last discussion about this truck is not as powerful as the truck we have now, is that right? But this is the one that will do the North Road, South Road, the main roads. And is it strong enough to do that?
We think so from what we, from the conversation that we had, with Cumberland. This is a vehicle that's in their fleet, and they spoke very highly of it. Full disclosure, I think that Chuck would prefer to have a class 2 truck. Even if we wanted one, we wouldn't be able to get it before winter. So my suggestion, to the crew was, basically, let's see if this truck works. Cumberland thinks that it will, their foreman over there thinks that it's enough. But I just want to give full disclosure on that.
Who's their foreman these days?
It's the same guy that
Stevie Goofy.
Steve,
Oh, okay.
he's still there.
He knows, yeah.
Jay,
Would it be slightly aside from this, would it be possible to get a list of the equipment that the Public Works Department has with age, condition, all those little cute kind of things, so that we can actually start to see what we're gonna be looking to replace? I mean, the sudden discovery of a crack in the frame, they don't crack suddenly, but this is something that happened over time.
I can dispute that one.
I've got enough trucks away from here and other businesses. But anyway, not to be that. But it would be good to have, like for the fire company, they have a list of their equipment, what the expected life is, what the ages are, and conditions. It would be good if we have the same thing for the Public Works Department. On that list, we should also include, shall we say, the want list, as in tractor and brush hog and, mower and all that kind of stuff. So we can actually look at it and say, okay, now we can put together a plan as to what we're gonna replace. I mean, this is why private corporations amortize things. And, and that's, so it's something that we should have, which we haven't had. So that would be good, and that, as I say, that's an aside. This is the truck is a 550, or the equivalent of
The 5,500.
5,500, yeah.
It's a new line that they started making. It's kind of in between what would have been the traditional, like 1 ton, 3/4. It's like,
It should be.
it's a new class. It's kind of,
It should be more, I mean,
it's pretty good.
I plow roads at a business I have in New Jersey, and we use an F-350 Mason Blunt configuration, and it does the job fine.
It's bigger than the red Ford truck, if that gives you an idea.
Yeah, no, I know the truck.
Okay, I just want to be
And I'm
clear.
just saying, I think it's fine.
one question, I think Jay raised a good point, but isn't some of that information in our capital plan?
The equipment list down there is not very good. He's right, there is.
Okay,
there
so
is
you
not
don't
very-
have a decent list?
No, we don't.
Okay,
There's a bunch of equipment down there that nobody uses
well, can
anymore.
that be, that's something you could give as a goal to the workers that, I mean. I don't think
Absolutely, I'll work with
that's
them to
actually
get you
easy to
something,
say.
definitely. so
But
you have it.
before we get ready to do our next
Yes.
budget season, that could be done. Jen, and then,
What happens to the one that has the cracked frame?
It's basically scrap, but after, once we purchase this truck, I was gonna basically bring that back for your decision on how you want to dispose of it, whether you want, It's currently over on the mainland, whether you wanted to bring it back for any reason, whether you wanted to try to sell it, or whether we should just scrap it and get rid of it while it's still over there. I will bring that back to you and make a decision. That's something, I don't have any options to do right now, so I'll bring you something.
Thanks, Dennis. Question. Yes. Mark.
So you are bringing it back to the island?
No,
Not
he said he's
necessarily.
gonna wait. He's gonna give us a recommendation
Okay.
at the next meeting.
Because my question was sort of in line with Jen's. I was wondering if we got any, I didn't see any trading value on this certainly, and I didn't hear about any value for scrap or sale to a private individual who said they could patch the frame up and use it somewhere.
We originally took it to an international dealer. Daigle and Houghton, they said that it was basically worth its scrap value. It's sitting over in their yard right now, but that's not the proposal that I'm suggesting we move along with. So it hasn't really been involved in anything. I'd be very surprised if they would want anything to do with it, if they can't sell
And just for the folks who may be listening at home, what was the year on that truck?
it. Oh, I don't have that. I think
Anybody
it's
know?
I think it's
It's
80 some,
I was gonna say, it's like,
86, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, but it's
we're
right.
talking decades old.
Well, the red one is an 86 or 87.
Okay, maybe,
in the garage right now. This one is like a 90,
Okay, maybe I'm getting
late
it confused.
90s. It's bought for two. It's
I don't even
bought,
remember.
it's bought for med bone.
Okay,
So call it 20 years old.
Okay, sorry, I got the
Well,
wrong.
I have one more quick question, and I know it's hard, maybe hard to do this, but if we purchase this new truck and it's out plowing and it's getting, self-inflicted road salt up underneath stuff, does the crew try to do a good job washing as much of that off as they can?
From what I understand, they do clean the trucks off before they put them away back in the garage. They try to.
That's what will eat these brake lines and frames. They treat the brake lines now for that specific reason, road salt. But letting any of it sit up in there is what causes a lot of this problem. Why I asked.
You see about rhino underneath, rhino frame.
What
Seen
is that?
that now.
What does that mean?
So, have you seen the pickup beds, they're all black, they're like rough and stuff? It's basically a type
Yeah.
of paint, sealant, I don't know exactly. what
It
is,
cuts
but
down the rust.
Yeah.
Basically sealant.
Oh,
Clint sprayed my 2 pickup truck with fluid film that he purchases from Napa.
will this come with something like that on it, or is that something we would do ourselves?
It's something we could either attempt, they could either attempt to do it, I could ask if they think they can do that. They currently do a lot of work on the red trucks bed. They have to recoat that every year to keep it from rusting, which is one of the reasons why this truck right here, we're going with a stainless steel bed, so it should last forever. The guy over in Cumberland said that he would not buy a steel bed ever again, because they're basically taking the beds off of trucks that are disintegrating and then putting them on new trucks because they're like brand new 20 years later.
One more question.
Sure.
Is this number that we're looking at, the first page, 66,000 and change, plus 57,000 and change?
Because it depends what you're looking at. This blue one that says GM at the top,
Yeah,
that's the inventory sheet. The price of it is on the one that says Kate, so it's 57,037.
sorry.
And then you're gonna add the 61,888 for all of the outfitting of the vehicle. So it's those two prices put together.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And how are we funding this?
I have a couple of different options. If you want to decide that, I can bring that back to you. But I currently have a loan. I have a loan price from the China Savings Bank of 2.5% for 5 years, if you wanted to do it that way. I could also borrow that money and I could go out to bond in the fall if you wanted to do that. It would probably be a lower interest rate and you pay off the bank loan and then. So the timing doesn't line up. Bond sales are only twice a year, so I can't do that right now for this particular.
Well, I can't speak for anybody else. I just want you to do the most efficient, cost-effective way.
Make sure we have a truck when it snows in the middle of October.
Say that.
Because all my plants are going very quickly along. I don't know about anybody else's, but that's what I'm worried about, that we're gonna have an early winter, so. All right, all in favor? Unanimous. And I assume you'll let us know what you decide about funding.
Yeah, absolutely.
All that.
Of course.
Okay, so now quickly, going on to communications. Does anyone have any communications about any topic we haven't already talked about? Oh,
Got an email, and I can't- the name escapes me of who it was, about coming to visit the island in Coyotes, and she was asking about
Oh, yeah.
what the town,
Staying.
or if the town had any plans on paying and neuters, and I couldn't answer the email because I could not remember. I know we had a warden come over and talk about it.
we did, we had
I can't remember what the-
we had a warden that came. I came with traps to show people what the traps look like. And we had a couple of suggestions about, you know, driving the island or whatever. And the sense was that nobody really wanted to continue on to try to figure out what to do about the coyotes. That was it kind of just fell away because there was no consensus on what to do. So that's kind of where we are on that. If somebody wants to bring up coyotes again, we can add that to the agenda.
No, that's communication.
Yeah.
I think we all got that.
Yeah.
Did you get that one, Justin,
Yeah,
about the coyotes?
No.
So,
Reference her to Chuck,
What's that?
send her to Chuck.
well, I think that sounded like somebody had talked to her and she was scared that when she came here, something, you know, bad was gonna happen. I think that was kind of, I got that feeling.
I vaguely remember the warden saying something that we can try to eradicate them, but they swim and whatever, it's a predator. So it's either gonna get replaced by something bigger or, so I think he was basically leave it to nature. So,
Well, I mean, his thing was really the only thing you could do to get rid of them is use dogs and drive the whole island. Okay, any more communication? Did you guys have any communication? on any-
there was just a letter and there was just a ballot, if you want to put that on the next
Yeah.
agenda to vote, that's all.
Yeah, okay. One communication that we did have was something about an elected officials meeting. If anyone has not gone to one of those, it's really beneficial, I felt. Some of us have gone, when we became a town, we all went. And then there have been other workshops and things in between. It doesn't cost anything. And it's a great way there's a lot that goes into it. And and I don't know, Jen, if anybody talked to you, that everyone who's an elected official is supposed to do a workshop on the right to know law. And I don't know, I think it's online now. We used to have to go to the lawyer's office.
Let me look it up for you,
Can
Jen.
you look it
I think
up?
it is online now.
Yeah, but we had to actually go in,
Yeah, we had with lawyers.
but I'm pretty sure that there's an online option. Okay, so is there a motion to approve the minutes from July 14th, 2021?
Hey, John, can I say one thing?
Sure.
I noticed when I was looking at this just now that Jen actually abstained on this vote, so I'll make that correction.
Okay,
Because she didn't receive a copy of the minutes, so
So,
I'll make that correction.
okay.
Thanks, Kristen.
Mhm.
I move we approve
Okay.
with that.
Yeah.
invitation.
Is there a second?
second,
All right, all in favor? All right, thank you. And items to be placed on future agenda. Do we want to discuss signs in the future?
yes.
When do we want to do it? Do we want to do it the next meeting or another meeting? Maybe Justin has some ideas of other things that are coming up and when he has an idea of when that discussion should happen.
This is just my personal opinion, but I would leave the signs alone for a month or two and just let everybody kind of calm down so that we don't get the same sort of reaction again, maybe wait till the summer's over and then we can bring it back up. Just because when people get heated, you give them a little while, they, a lot of things just go away. So that would just be my suggestion on the signs.
Is that okay with you?
No problem.
Then we'll bring it up maybe in September.
Yeah.
Can you write that down, Chris, just because
Yeah.
you don't mind the fifth grade? Okay, anything else that, that needs to be brought up, something new, Mark?
This is nothing new, and I'm not sure it needs to be on a immediate future agenda or even on an agenda at first. But I would like to suggest that possibly we consider revisiting discussions with the golf course about that little piece of property down next to the stone wharf, where at one point there was proposed to be some sort of a arrangement or swap with or a sale from a golf course to use that property for some extra parking. I just don't think there's anything wrong with reopening those conversations to see if there's any possibility of movement in that area.
Jay?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. The original proposal had been a 99-year lease. I think it's something that we shouldn't lease, we should just buy from them. And we actually took it to town vote to get the zoning changed, and it got turned down because it wasn't part of there sort of wasn't a whole plan in place. And it was a lease, and the town didn't own it. I think that going back and looking at that is a really good idea. It was about 35 additional parking spots. And the cost was going to be about 100,000, if memory serves. And because I remember Pete Cullen saying, we're not going to pay $3,500 a parking spot. Getting all bent out of shape about that, but it looks really cheap now. So I think that's a good point. We should go back and revisit it. And it has to be part and parcel of a whole plan down there. I mean, it's lovely addressing little bits and pieces, but we sort of need to have, here's an overall scheme, and let's do this now, let's do this now, and we'll get to this part in 2 years or 3 years, or however we want to do that. But let's just sort of get an overall plan.
Well, I think that's what we're waiting for the structural report back, and I think then that's the next step, is to get that. I think that the parking spaces vary depending on how the reconfiguration of the entrances and exits. And we did actually have a plan, C.B. and Mahar made a plan.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a 99-year lease. It was a lease contingent upon if we didn't allow parking on the road. I think there were a lot of variables. And I think I agree with you, Jay. I think it would be much more palatable to the community if they would sell it to us outright without
No conditions.
restrictions. And that was the problem. I was one of the chief negotiators on that, and they would not budge. I mean, we got them to come a long way. I can't tell you what it was like when they first broached it, but,
So all that I'm suggesting, not tomorrow, not next week.
Yeah.
But sometime in the near future, that a couple of selectmen, I would volunteer to be one, maybe Jay would be the other one. Be authorized by the selectmen at some point to have a conversation with the golf course, come back and report on how the conversation went, and see if we can get any forward movement towards looking at that piece of property. Understanding that it looks like we're piecemealing again with the road and possibly the sumac trees and then, but you gotta start somewhere. So I'm suggesting we restart conversation.
I'm willing if people thought it was all right to have an informal discussion with salad preps, just as, like just over a cup of tea and just say,
Fine with me.
to start with, and then if you guys want to take that,
Yeah.
just to get just kind of,
I was approached by Jim Gallagher right before the pandemic hit about revisiting these discussions.
Well,
Who's the president? Is it Jim?
Sally.
Oh,
So that's
Sally's-
why and I've been communicating with her a lot about some other issues. One, I'll tell you, I think that one of the things that they're interested in is getting a permanent agreement about the 7th. That, so, you know, because they have approached me about, that's a concern that, you know, whatever we do down there, they don't want to lose that. I mean, I've just assured them from personally that I have never heard anybody say they wanted to,
Sounds like a negotiating point to me.
yeah.
Well, they could ship out of the back of my truck, it wouldn't bother me in.
Right off the independent.
One other thing I think that we should be taking up, which I mentioned earlier, is the rules of operation down on the center board. And part of which is would be with CTC about their timing of barging and ferry landings. And, you know, taking a look at how we want to change traffic patterns down there. Because that will clear up a whole lot of this.
I think there's two ways to look at that issue. I mean, I understand what a mess it is down there when they're landing the barge and people are coming on the boat, going to the boat and coming off the boat. And it's the same problem over on the other side of Cousins Island. So there's really no, it's either one problem in one place or the other problem, but.
But we don't really care what happens on the Cousins Island side. We can't
Well,
control that.
Well, we
What
can,
we care about is what's going on.
no, we can control it because in the parking lot, people can't get out of their parking spaces because people are lined up in the barge.
Well, it's not a problem. You can't find a parking space. There aren't any available. But that's another topic.
But, Yes.
My only thing with what Jay's, saying is, maybe we should just throw a bug in the ear that we're looking at it. But like, it's been said before, without an ultimate plan or an ultimate idea of what we want down there, we're just, I don't want to change the rules of operations down there or change the policy or whatever down there until we get, all right, this is our facility, this is how it's run now. So, I mean, I don't mind having talks with them and seeing if we can change some stuff in the meantime.
I think it would be fascinating to run an experiment for 1 month where the barge couldn't land within 15 minutes of ferry. And just, I mean, go down and take a look and see what the difference it makes.
well, one of my thoughts is CTC has been very willing and wanting to, you know, really work with the town. And it might be a good idea to have a workshop on what we can and can't do, what are some of the ideas, do a brainstorming workshop with them about, what can be done down there that might make it better. And this would be an entree into that discussion. What do people think about that, trying to set up a workshop meeting with some representatives from CTC to discuss, whether it's barging times or, what are some of the other issues down there? They may have some issues.
I don't,
Does,
I think that'd be fine.
do you think that's a good way to start?
We're not,
Yeah, I think we have to take a look at our rule, at what we have in place.
Well, that's.
Because it's not necessarily being, may or may not being enforced right now. I have no clue. I'm just throwing that out. So that we know what we're doing, what we have and where we're going. And then I would suggest that, if you want to have a brainstorming session with CTC, it's good luck, I guess.
Well, I think that.
I mean, every time I've been involved with them, it has not been a particularly fruitful experience.
Well, I really think we're all in the same boat here, and we're all working together, and we all use, CTC uses the facility, we all use the boat. Why not at least sit down and try to figure out where is the common ground, and how can we solve problems together? That makes, to me, that's a positive way to start. Our own personal, the rules that the town has set up there, whether it's the June and November, whether it's where the handicap is, that's an internal issue for this board, where we maybe review all of the different rules that we have down there.
Yeah.
But so it's really two different issues.
But I think in the short term, it might be interesting for somebody to just, you know, chat with, Matt, Ridgway and maybe John Rent, who's the manager and president. You know, have you had other people make comments about the barge coming right in as the boat? Have you heard any other?
I mean, I'd be happy to sit, I mean, I'm willing
Have
to
you
do
ever
it.
thought about maybe waiting just a few minutes before you pull in?
Right,
Blah, 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 and see what their reaction is? So that's big before you get into a workshop.
yeah, I'm happy to have a preliminary discussion if you want me to.
Or I'll just tell them they can't win.
No, I mean, do people want, maybe
Yeah, they
just,
might have-
maybe Justin and I can meet with them and just, you know, do some brainstorming.
I have no issue revisiting or looking at the rules and stuff that we have in place currently. And then have you two go visit with CDC and see if we can come up with some kind of solution.
In the meantime, I think, if I may, Donna, I think you asked us if we minded if you had an informal conversation with Sally Crapser about the golf course and the property, and I certainly don't mind that.
Yeah.
I know you asked.
Yeah, and then to see, you know, kind of as an entree into, you know, maybe a couple of board members were willing to sit down and spend some time talking
Get
about it.
out there.
All right,
I have one item.
okay,
And I don't know if it needs to be an agenda item or anything, but the right of, people putting stuff in the right of way of the roads. Either ornamental tree, or whatever you want to call it, or fences, rock walls and stuff. I'm just wondering who monitors that? And how do you find out if they are presently in the right of way or not?
all right, that's a good
If
question.
if it's a road thing, let me know, and I'll do my best to figure out where the, you know, if I can find pins or something like that, or we can come to some consensus with the landowner, I can deal with that. You just let me know if you have a particular issue, I can go up and look into it.
One
I
thing,
mean, so if I want to go out, if I want to go out and put something on the side of the road, I'm just free to put it on the side of the road. There's no,
Like something you're selling, or,
no, I'm just saying, if I want to make a rock wall on the side of the road, on North Road, you all know where my property is, so if I put rock walls all the way to one end to the other, there's nothing that states that nobody's gonna come tell me anything.
probably not unless it becomes some impediment to the public way.
well,
So-
this is the
So
problem.
that's what I mean, if it's in and obviously, if I put it like 1 or 2 feet off the road, that's in the town's right away.
Yep.
So,
And if it comes,
Just
if it
wondering-
comes to what the town needs, it, they're gonna move it.
But the bottom line, what has happened in this town is people just totally disregard that. And, they put stuff wherever they want, and then it's been there so long. I mean, no one in the town has taken the role of checking that kind of stuff out. I mean, that's been really the problem for.
It's really the same
forever.
everywhere though. I mean, if you go into a community that has a sidewalk, often 2 or 3 feet off the sidewalk is part of the public right of way. But people mow their lawn up to the sidewalk, and then that's just, right, people go right to the street. If it's flat, they will. I mean, or if there's a ditch, they'll go all the way to the edge of the ditch, whether they own that land or not. I mean, that's pretty, it's kind of the same everywhere.
Maybe we should have an agenda item in, the future about the right of ways of roads. For example, but I guess what I'm thinking is, so that we come up with some kind of an educational, bulletin, you know, or, you know, flyer or something on Beverly's website, because a lot of people don't understand. They think that their property goes to the road. And when it says to the road, it's talking about the road right of way. It's not talking about to wherever the road is paved, wherever the road is, you know, whether it's dirt or whatever. And I think that maybe, you know, we can talk about that at another time and actually come up with something. So we send that out to people. and say, look, if you want to plant hedges along the road, I'm thinking of Firehouse Road is a good example. You need to go to the town and find out where the right of way of the road is, and make sure you're not within that, because the town may come, or the snowplow may come, or we've got people who put lobster traps that are in the middle of the right of way of the road, and the town can't plow the road because the traps are in there. And so I think it's education part of it. That's the first place to start.
Very,
That's a good workshop.
very quickly, I think I mentioned to you that in a few places, probably 3 or 4, some people's trees and bushes are starting to grow right out into the road. That is a safety vision issue as far as, you know, so take your rearview mirror off the other truck. So, I would like to ride around with you, and just show you 2 or 3 places. And I think that's probably gonna be a conversation with that property owner, correct?
And not necessarily if it's in the right of way, if it's in the street, it can just cut.
Oh.
I mean, it's about being nice, letting them know you're doing it, right? But
Yeah.
but it is within the town's right.
But there is 2 or 3 places where it's really.
I will say on North Road, you know,
Well,
branches are slapping in the wind.
and it's South Road too. I've already spoken to Justin about the area between Firehouse and the museum, because I walk that on a regular basis. And it's really scary because by people's mailboxes, when the town has cut them side of the road, they haven't clipped it in around there. So anyway,
I didn't mean to bog that down, sorry.
okay, no, but I mean, these are all issues that we need to somehow, and it may be education.
Mhm.
Thank you. All right, anything else? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you. So Chris, there was a lot of rambling in that little, discussion about future agenda items. Did you get most of the topic?